Well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining today's education session focused on automating your reporting workflows. And we're going to discuss how you can use Power BI to automate the traditionally manual, repetitive ERP reporting processes. So my name is David Kettinger, and I'm on the product management team at Preferred Strategies, mainly focused on product marketing, but I've worn many hats over the past 7 years here, including most of my time as a data analytics consultant. And today we're fortunate to have my friend and colleague Ben Harrison join us to lead us through this data automation journey. And Ben has had a varied career starting in the aerospace engineering industry, doing actual rocket science. And then he spent many years in the construction field before focusing in on the data analytics space. And he currently serves as the VP of Product Management at Preferred Strategies. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Ben.
Okay, good. This is just a kind of a picture of our team. You can see David up in the upper left corner. I'm kind of down in the front row on the right. I'm going to stop sharing my camera now just because I think it takes up a little bit of space on the screen. So maybe save some of that. Please go ahead and if you've never been in GoToWebinar, there should be a little chat and a question window for you. So I want you to go ahead and ask questions. David's going to help field those. If you want to put something in chat, please do that. We'll have a question and an answer time at the end of the presentation. So hopefully that will allow us to address any questions that we don't get to, that I don't get to cover during the course of the presentation. If you think about, our company Preferred Strategies, we're a team dedicated to business analytics. That's all we really do. We focus on a couple of ERPs. The title today is on automation for JDE Edwards and Vista, but it really applies to any sort of data system, source data system. So if you have an enterprise data system, the topics I want to cover today in terms of analytics should cover you. We do have a pretty wide range of customers now, all sorts of industries, all sorts of technologies. And so the principles behind what we do are pretty widely applicable to multiple types of businesses or even public agencies. So I like this question. I want to get started with this idea of moving data from one place to the other. Dissemination of information has always been a challenge. Historically, we have all sorts of stories from how people communicated over time. But I did have this question of, back in 1860, how did data or information get from the East Coast to the West Coast? So back then, data, not what we think of today as emails and files, but it would have been letters and newspapers. So to get that data from one coast to the other, there's three main choices: boat to Panama, then taking a wagon across the Panama, the Isthmus of Panama, and then a boat to San Francisco. That journey took several months. So a newspaper or a letter took a couple of months to get there. There was an option, the Butterfield Overland Mail Trail, those stagecoaches that we know from westerns of old. That was an arduous journey, but did take about 3 weeks, almost a lot faster than the boat, but really rough going on the people doing that travel. The last choice was the Pony Express. Now, it took only 10 days. Now, that's astounding at that time frame. That was like lightning speed. Just as a comparison, when James Buchanan was elected president in 1856, it took several months for the news to reach California. 4 years later, with the Pony Express, California's newspapers received words of Lincoln's election only 7 days and 17 hours after the election was certified. That was astounding. It was amazing. People were shocked by that capability. So I've been interested in the Pony Express since I used to watch it, on TV when I was a kid. It'd be in the movies, it'd be in the old westerns that were popular back when I was a child. But I moved to Sacramento then as a teenager. That's right here at the end of the Pony Express line. And I was in old Sacramento and saw a sign saying the Pony Express ended here. And that really made it real to me. Instead of just a TV show or a history, here's a place that I'd heard of. It's actually a fascinating story. The Pony Express was 153 stations from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California. The typical group of letters or a package of letters would be taken by 80 riders using about 500 horses. What would happen is each rider would have 4 to 6 horses per shift, and they would ride 10 to 15 miles per horse all the way across. And again, they could cross that breadth of land in about 10 days. Legends were born during this time. William Cody was an early rider. He eventually became Buffalo Bill Cody, probably famous for Western shows, and even so, and so the lore is still out there. You can actually do reenactments of the Pony Express even today. They'll do short sections of it. But it was really expensive to send a letter this way or a newspaper, and so it was hard. Some horses and riders died along the way. So in the end, it was too expensive to work, and it only operated for 18 months. But it's interesting to note that it didn't get replaced by a company that had faster horses or better riders. Ultimately, 10 days was just too slow, and it was replaced by the telegraph. So complete technology change. Okay, so this is actually not a class today or a webinar about the Pony Express, but we're here to talk about data automation. But in this metaphor, perhaps JD Edwards or Vista or some other ERP is the East Coast in this metaphor, and maybe Power BI is the West Coast. So we want to talk about how do we get that data from one place to another. I'm going to kind of go through just this in 4 stages. One is talk about the status quo. How do we do it now? And I know because I've done this for decades in my JD Edwards past and my Viewpoint Vista past about how do you get data currently out of the system, kind of our legacy ways. Then we're going to look at why is automation hard? And it is hard. It's difficult to do this well. I want to talk about some specific automated data workflow success stories. I got 3 I really would like to cover, and then I want to really show you the kind of the end result demonstrating in Power BI of what does it look like when you have a fully automated data set to help your business. Okay, so thinking about automated workflow, and this is really a manual process. You got that blue cube on the far left that says ERP database sources. That's your Vista or your JD Edwards or just any other enterprise data source. It could be NetSuite, but you need to get that data. In the end, you want to get that to users. You need to distribute the report. So most people now do a data gathering phase, and that might be traditional JD Edwards reports or Vista reports. Might be other legacy reporting systems that you've added on. I must have written hundreds of Crystal reports, over my career that really looked at that data, gathering that data out. Sometimes the Crystal report would be enough, but sometimes I'd have to export that to Excel because I wanted to do some data transformation. So I might change column formats, change dates, turn text to numbers, do all sorts of kind of data manipulation there, even bringing in some data from some other sources that was not in the ERP, and so I had to merge them somewhere, and I might have done that in that data transformation stage. If you think about data enrichment, that's where you might do some concatenations. You're doing some lookup of marrying the vendor name with the vendor number. You're establishing what are the key fields in it. Data enrichment might also include creating a time basis for your, what month is a transaction in, what year. So all sorts of data enrichment might be happening on there. You're probably adding metadata layers if possible. So a city is a city and post off zip code to zip code. But you're also creating, the last thing I want to point there is you've got business logic built into that data enrichment that defines key things you want to measure. For instance, in construction, backlog is total contract amount minus your earned revenue so far, and backlog something you want to calculate. So you put that in that data enrichment phase. Ultimately, you get to a presentation layer. A lot of people, that is just Excel. You might actually be using Power BI today. And of course, you need to distribute that. There's somebody creating this report, but they're creating it for somebody. And so that distribution process has to happen. So this is the kind of the workflow of getting data from the East Coast to the West Coast, or from get the ERP system to the end users. Note though that all those things are manual. They happen over and over again. They're very repeated. So, you might have a AP report that you run every day, and it takes 30 minutes every time you run that data, right? So if you make a mistake, you've wasted 30 minutes, you go and start over again. So very, very repetitive, very recurring, and again, very manual. So a lot of people I've seen, and it was true for me, I would automate parts of this workflow, and that helps, but you're really going to get the biggest bang for the buck when you automate the entire process, and that's what I want to talk about today. So thinking about data without that automated flow, and this is again a process that I did dozens and dozens of times. You got maybe a ERP report that extracts some data from their ERP system, Vista, JDE, Edwards, or whatever, and then eventually you might load into a spreadsheet to manipulate it, and it's pretty simple, straightforward, right? If only life was this simple, you could probably live with this. But what really happens is you start needing some more sophistication, right? You've got the first report and you realize, oh, if only I had this other data, or if only I could merge this. So you get a new tab on the spreadsheet, or you even get a new spreadsheet and create a link. And so spreadsheets refer to reports that have to be run and updated manually. And so it even gets worse. Pretty soon you've got multiple layers of data in this way, and it's really hard to actually understand what's happening to the data as it flows through this process. To make it even more complicated, I don't know any company that just wants JD Edwards or Vista data. You need some CRM data, you need some production data, some field time entry data, even Internet of Things data on your equipment. So your data sources are not just unilaterally one thing. You got multiple data sources, and that's often why you have these spreadsheets doing this, right? You're bringing them, you're using spreadsheets to merge multiple data. So the problem with this is what happens when you need to make a category code change, or you need to redefine what backlog is, because it's a dynamic business. Your business logic doesn't stay static. So what really happens is you got this Pony Express of changes going from one layer to another layer to another layer to even another set, and that takes time to spread through your process. That's that it's like the Pony Express slowly making its way across the process. So that is a 10-day process or longer, and that time is money. So what else this represents is your business logic is out of control. Those things that you defined, like backlog or gross profit or cost to complete, those things are defined in bunches of places. So you've got no control of your business logic. In terms of being scalable, maintainable, governable, or secure, it's none of those, right? You've got this mess, you got spreadsheets in different people's hands, there's no business logic control. So very, very risky in terms of a business functionality point of view. It is very costly. Again, you think about 30 minutes a day to prepare even a simple AP report. You do that every day, year after year. And the cost of just getting the data and managing it this way is more than you've probably calculated or that you've considered. What's more is it's error prone. You don't have a single version of the truth. You've got 45 versions of the truth. So now you've got the potential for conflicting information and confusion about what's the foundation of what the decision should be. So what should you do instead? Instead of this not automated data flow, and by the way, even if you had Power BI directly connected to the ERP system, as long as your Power BI data sets have that business logic built into them, you're really just changing one complicated web of information silos with a new version of information silos. So that's not the right answer. This is what we believe the right answer is. And this is a automated data flow, that blue cube. I'm going to refer to it when I get into the demo. I want to show you some examples of what that really looks like structurally, and when we get to some of the reporting. But what we're saying is automate everything, every single step of the way. The data extraction, the data manipulation, metadata layers that you're adding to that. So that transformation, that enrichment, the presentation layer, even the report distribution system. If that's not all automated, you've missed an opportunity that will really change how you run your business. So not query by query, but one place where you define your business logic. That gets that centralized business logic. It's very important to have that. In terms of being scalable, maintainable, and governable and secure, you can apply security to that blue cube so people see only the data they're supposed to see. You can control the governance of it, and you kind of centralize the logic so it's maintainable. It's very, very robust in terms of deployment if you create this data automation from a holistic point of view. There's a very important point about this. Really, if you think about all those spreadsheets, those are often created by domain experts who know where the data is. And what you really want is to move the content creation from domain experts, someone who understands JDE and Vista, the tables underneath it, and put it into the hands of operational experts, people who understand what they're building or how they're working. So the automated data flow, when it's working well, is going to shift content creation towards the operational experts. And that's where big money is going to be made in your company. So thinking about that automation, why is it so hard? Well, I just showed you a blue cube as if it was one single thing, but you've got so much happening here. You've got your internal data sources that you need to connect to, whether it's a database and you got forecasts, you got flat files, you got even Excel data sources, you've got external data sources. So you might have multiple places to get data that you need to merge. Each one of those data sources needs to have some connections to it, some gateways or APIs. So maybe you're using ODBC or ODA, there's all sorts of ways to connect to the data, but these things are different for each data set, and you need to understand how to make them all work in unison as one plan. Then you got the data cleansing layer here. So you got partitioning the data. How do you refresh it? If you got a large data set, the time to refresh is important to consider. So again, the system needs to work seamlessly together to end up with this ultimately a blue cube here that, so I consider that like the blue cube, that layer. And then I can come with my tools and look at that. Now, the tool I like the best right now is Power BI, but there's other tools that you should be able to use to look at that blue cube, and I'll cover some of those possibilities as well. Okay, so again, this is it's difficult because there's a lot moving on here, and that will become clear when I look at the data model that I show you in just a minute. So what's the compelling argument for doing this? I do want to give some examples of positive outcomes and why it was important to have that data automated. So the first one is one of our customers they took their AR credit dispute time down from 4 hours to 5 minutes. And what I mean by that is someone's on credit hold, they had to go and do all sorts of research, run this report, run that report, and it took them about 4 hours to put together that analysis. And now, because of that automated data flow that prepares the data automatically behind the scenes, it takes about 5 minutes to do that. So think, oh good, we saved a bunch of hours. But that's not where the money is. The money is because you had a truck at the gate ready to go to the customer, and the guard at the gate held the truck because the customer's on credit hold. 4 hours later, you got the executive suite of both companies, everyone's up in arms, no one's happy, and maybe it was a mistake or maybe it was a true credit hold. Either way, you got a problem. If they should have been on credit hold and you let the truck go, you got a problem. If they shouldn't have been on credit hold and you held the truck, you've got a problem. So again, that changing from 4 hours to 5 minutes changes that dynamic completely. You have happy customers, the less risk that you have to send the truck back and unload it and restock everything. So again, the automated data gave that insight quicker, and the time is of the essence in these types of situations. The next example is a different customer who had a 4-day month-end close process. Now, they didn't close the whole month, but they actually said, okay, we're done with transactions, and then they did lots of manipulation, and then 4 days later, they could give the reports to the executives. So they did cut that 4 days out. They actually did it in 2 steps. They didn't automate the entire process flow at one time. They did it in, they automated part of it and got the close down to 2 days shorter. And then in the end, they automated the entire process and got it down to 4 days earlier. Now that makes their executives very happy. Every executive, I used to report to the CFO, and he always wanted me to guess what the numbers would be days before we had the final numbers. Early information is, it's hard to exaggerate how important that is to executives. It's also more accurate, right? So if you automated that data flow, there's fewer mistakes, there's less risk, and it gives a lot more time to analyze instead of prepare the data. So that company actually cut out about 1,000 hours cumulative. There's a large company, about 1,000 hours of prep time that they used to spend every month, and that turned it into not all analyzed time, but just remove that manual work. So again, big savings there. The last one again is an example of why automation really mattered to this last process engineering company. They used to be able to analyze their data, and it would take about 3 to 4 hours to gather the data. And now it takes about 30 seconds to gather the data. The reason that's important is they took an artificial intelligence engine and applied it to that data that's 30 seconds old. And what that meant is they could optimize their process right now, multiple times a day, instead of once or twice a day. Well, that optimization of the process yielded more product for them, to the tune of $8 million in the first year alone. I understand the second year it was about 12 million, and the third year they're expecting about 15 million of additional product being created just because they could optimize their process. And the optimized process was built on the fact that they automated the data flow so that they could see the data earlier to act on it. That's a theme I want to just point out here. You might be thinking that stories about automations are saving the data prep time. And that is true. There's money to be made there. But the big money is the fact that you can analyze this information sooner, days sooner or hours sooner than you would have otherwise. And that's where you're going to get the big improvements in your business. So what I would like to do now is kind of move over to a kind of demo and say what happens as you look at this automated data, and what's that mean to an end user. So I'm going to talk about that blue cube, kind of what it looks like. It is a complex animal, but again, it is governable, it's sustainable, you can grow with it. And so there's a lot of compelling reasons to build that automated data platform. I'm going to be using Power BI mostly. Power BI, if you're not familiar with it, is a Microsoft tool. It's kind of the lead right now, and there's a thing called the Gartner Magic Quadrant in terms of tools and availability. But it has 3 components. When you talk about Power BI, it's not one thing. There's a desktop tool that you can download for free. There's a Power BI service that you pay Microsoft for the privilege of using. That's where you publish reports that that you create that you want to share with other people. And then of course there's mobile apps that you can see those reports either just on a browser or on your phone or your tablet or anything as you move around the world. Okay, so let me switch over to the kind of a demo section, and let's start looking at what this really means. So I've opened up the Power BI desktop. And so this is a tool, and I've connected to a portion of the blue cube over here. This is a sales portion. It happens to be JDE Edwards sales data set, but it's true whether it's Vista or any other system. You're going to have a group of tables, and in this you've got maybe the idea of, well, what's my customers? This is the idea, again, back to the idea that an end user can come and find the customer and name here and click on it. Now, it turns out that if I hover over there, you can see the governance of that this is coming out of the customer table is the F03012, that's in JD Edwards speak, right? But I can start seeing the data provenance. Now, not everyone cares about that data provenance, but it's really important for the integrity of your business to understand where's the data coming from, because you might need to start do some validations eventually, and so having that provenance is important as you think about automating your data. Where did it come from and what's its source? Keep track of that. I'm going to go ahead and look at a single value here. I'm going to look in the sales table, and let's look at sales amount. and I'm going to pick sales amount year to date. So YTD in our model stands for year to date. This is again that business logic that's been built into the model so that I can trust it, right? If I pick sales amount year to date and David picks sales amount year to date, we're going to get the same number. There's this governed business logic is all defined. I'm going to add to that. Notice that right away I've got my customer, I've got sales amount year to date, and the visual I've picked. I'm going to go ahead and add sales amount prior year, year to date. And this is as easy as it should be to create a tool. As you move the creation process from the domain experts towards those operational experts, those people need to be able to get this data and slice it and dice it, add product, add region, add whatever they need to do, because it should be easy, it should be intuitive. And that's what we do find is a lot of customers find that there's many more people at their companies who are able to do some self-service analytics because the data model's there. That's kind of a quick look at that. Obviously, I can change it from a table. We do believe visualizations are the right way to go, but if you look at maybe a clustered column chart, you can start rearranging. I can copy paste and add product. I'm going to show you a finished report in just a minute. But while I'm here, I do want to talk again about that blue cube. We've been saying this is the sales portion of that blue cube. And if I go down here to my schema kind of model view, and I look here, this is that sales. So I got a centralized fact table. I think that was the F41. You can see that the sources of that at the JDE Edwards. If you happen to be a JDE Edwards customer, again, this is true whatever ERP system it is. Just in Vista, it's going to be a different set of data and job cost or an accounts receivable or general ledger. But there's relationships between that centralized fact table and the elements around it are the dimensions that I might want to slice the sales amounts by, by customer, by salesperson, by work order. There's lots of ways to look at that. This again is the one perspective, but what really is happening here, that blue cube is a much bigger animal, and I won't be able to zoom this down out far enough because it'll just be too small. But again, in that blue cube, I've got the GL data, I've got the inventory data, we've got the accounts receivable, accounts payable, the work order data, and there's relationships between all of that. Again, this is where that data automation is not automating one pipeline. You're trying to automate the entire enterprise so that people have access to the information they need, and you're still going to apply the security that you need to control that. So I wanted you to see that before we move over to the Power BI service. I'm going to kind of pop over there now and look at what do these reports look like when they're all together. So let me switch to this screen. Now I'm looking at the Power BI service, and this is what's called an app in the service, and it's really where people are meant to consume information. I have a lot of reports in the service that I've published in this app. I'm looking at a sales report right now, and I'm actually looking at a summary analysis on the sales report. Now, again, the data to feed this report is automated. I don't do any downloading, I don't do any manipulation, but I've then arranged this to where I can see maybe data in a storyline that helps me understand what's going on. So if I'm thinking about maybe what I want to pay attention to, I would look at customers. It looks like I've got a problem here. Something's wrong. I've got my year-to-year gross profit is down, my sales amount is down, and my gross profit percent is down. So I want to start analyzing it and looking at this. It looks like I've got a problem with Newegg. This is a variance chart, a waterfall chart. Waterfall charts are really good at looking at variances. I can actually do some validation to see where is Newegg in trouble. Well, if I cross filter and say, well, is it in mobile? Yeah, it looks like I got some issues in mobile. I've got a lot of issues in appliances. I don't have much in TV, home, and theater is fine. So it looks like really Newegg's mostly appliances. So let's go ahead and drill down there. So one of the things you can do in that blue cube, because the data is automated, I can go and say, let's drill down and look at the data. It's not just the summary data that I've automated, it's the entire data flow. Again, think about that that blue cube is being refreshed, is being updated. So I have current data that provides me insight into what's going on. I've drilled down to appliances. That kind of confirms what I looked at over here. If I want to look more, I can drill down again. Again, that blue cube data is deep. Ultimately, though, I now see I got ranges and dishwashers, but I might want to know more about that. The answer's always in the details. So I'm going to drill through to the transaction details. And in doing so, I get to see the real transactions. Now, this is important. It's important if I'm looking at general ledger or sales. What is it that we're selling now? And what were we selling last year? And what's changed? Why is it that Newegg is not buying the product? The answer's in the details. And so you want your users not to have to go back and run another report or do another download. And that's one of the issues of if all that process is manual, even once you find out I've got a problem with Newegg, now I got to go and download more data and process that, right? The key to analytics, the key to operational decision-making quickly is the fact that all the information you need is flowed in this automated process so that I can see the data and make those decisions and make those insights. One thing about drilling down to the details that is also good is if I can see the details, I can actually trust the data up here, right? I know this is right because at any one of these, I can see where am I doing better, where am I doing worse, and I can have a lot of real powerful understanding about what is happening in my business because the data is there and available for me. So I've shown you kind of the drill down, drill through. Another thing that's important to me, I did this in analytics, for actually a couple of decades until I came in to do this full time, is the time-based element of it. So this particular chart is showing year to date, and it's done this because I've selected that year to date option. If I come in here and I say month to date, it filters my data for just the month I've picked, June of 2019. If I say quarter to date, I can see that. Now this is important to me because you see different outliers, and the nature of analytics is looking for trends, correlations, and outliers. And so by being able to slice the time, I can see those things and I can start noticing differences that I might notice something at the month-to-date look that I don't see in the year-to-date trend. And so those things are important as well. That blue cube, that data automation is not bringing a single snapshot of time, it's bringing all the data for the time that you want to analyze, whether it's 1 year, 4 years, or 20 years of data. All of it can be part of that blue cube. There's really, the data sizes can be pretty astounding these days. I do want to show another thing, because of that time-lapse element, I like scatter charts. Scatter charts are really powerful in terms of the amount of information they can show. I'm going to go into the focus mode, so I just kind of blow up that scatter chart. And in this, I'm looking at a bunch of things. I've got the size of the dot is the total sales. The color of the dot is showing who the salesperson is. I've got gross profit dollars plotted on the x-axis, and I've got gross profit percent plotted on the y-axis. What I can see here is Matt Jones has really good gross profit percent, but not much in the way of sales. Robert O'Neill has his gross profit percent is worse, but all in all, he made a lot more gross profit. So what happened over time, again, because of the time-based nature of that, I can actually plot these and get some insights into what makes a successful salesperson and what is good performance. Would I rather have a lower percent or higher dollars? You need to look at your sales, your profit percents all together at one time. And you can actually then start doing some comparison of maybe Jennifer Alvarez versus Robert O'Neill to get some kind of understanding. Looks like Robert started out with the pack, did something in his sales to drop his profit percent, but he grew his GP dollars faster than everybody else and his sales dollars. So it all kind of starts to become together as I start to analyze what's going on in the business. I'm going to go back to that report. Hopefully this is giving you a few ideas about why that blue cube is compelling in terms of getting that data to me as an end user to start understanding my business. But we also mentioned other things in that automation. If you think about your data workflow, one of the things is how do you get this data distributed to your report? and you want to automate that as well, right? So you need to be able to subscribe to the report. I used to have to distribute reports to project managers. I had sent some on Monday, some on Wednesday, some on Friday afternoon. And if they wanted to change that, they had to come back to me. There's nothing automated about it. It took me a lot of work, and it frustrated the end users. But the idea that I can subscribe to my very own reports and get the data when I want to, that's self-service, and it's going to be emailed to me when it's ready, is very, very compelling from a distribution. So don't think just about automating the data flow. Think about automating how you get that data out to the end users as well. And so that's something to make sure you include. I'm not going to actually subscribe to that. Another thing that's important is commenting. One of the things I used to do a lot of was I would save a report, mark it up, put it in an email, and comment it, and then get that back, but it was tied to the report. But the idea that I can connected these reports here, so I could go to my friend David, who's on the call with me, and say, David Kettinger, can you look into this? I can post this, and now that commenting is a part of this process, part of that connection that brings David back to the same report to answer the questions I might ask him about that. So the subscribing, comments, the idea of getting insights, and well, I'll go ahead and show this now. I was going to show it a little bit later, but when you think about how do you understand what's happening in your data set, one of the ways to automate the analysis of that is to have a tool like Get Insights. So if I apply that Get Insights onto this particular report, it automatically went through and did some analysis. It used some machine learning, some artificial intelligence to tell me that my overall sales is up, and the biggest new contributor is Costco. It looks like my gross profit's down, and the biggest problem there is airport appliance, right? So this is the type of insights that I could have done some work and done that, but I was able to automate some of that work because of the blue cube is vast, and the artificial intelligence machine learning can apply to the entire blue cube to give me insights into my business that might have been hard to find otherwise. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of that automating not just getting the data to you, but automating some of the report analysis and distribution as well. Okay, I need to move along because I'm taking longer than I intended to, but I want to show two more elements about that blue cube. We mentioned it before, but if you look about tools to use that, I've been looking at Power BI, but in fact, I can use the exact same tool, and I can use, this is the GL portion of that blue cube. It's got the same idea of controlled measures, and I can start looking at data that way using Excel. The beautiful thing about this is if I was looking at the same data in Power BI, and I looked at the data here in Excel, I'm going to get the exact same answer because it's one governed data source. It is truly a single source of the truth. So if I'm looking at actual amount up to date, and David is, and we're looking at different reports, we're going to get the same answer because the data set's governed. Besides doing maybe Excel or Power BI, there's this idea of what used to be called in Microsoft world of paginated reports. So I was looking at maybe an income statement against that blue cube. As before, I'm going to get one single answer, just a different tool to look at that data set. And that's where you might have multiple tools that are using to look at that governed automated data set. In this case, as before, I can go look at revenue. I can drill into that. I can drill down again to the actual accounts. I can actually drill down in the accounts to the details, because just like it was in the sales side where I drill down to the sales transaction details, in this case, I'm in the GL, I'm drilling down to the journal entries. Think about it, that company shortened their month end close. Because they could get insight into the transactions, you can find what's the reversing entry that we didn't reverse, or did we reverse it twice, or what's missing, what got posted to the wrong account. The answer's always in the details, and your automated data flow needs to be able to provide you with that type of insight. So single model, single governance, very hopefully impactful in terms of if you think about what's possible. I want to show you one more element in terms of automating, and then we'll stop for questions. And that's back to that Power BI report I started with, right? I came in here in sales and started doing some quick reporting, but I actually don't need to know how to build the bar chart. I can actually I'm going to add a new page. If I double click on the canvas, I get a prompt up. It says, ask a question about your data. Now this is where this automation gets even better. You can automate, I'm going to say sales amount by customer. If I can spell or type really. So automatically it's provided me a possible chart just by typing in the data. So think again, talking about that, all those steps of automation. This distribution's automated, gathering the data, transforming it, enriching it, but even the generating the reports can start to become automated, where you just need to know what you're looking for, and it will start creating the charts that you might want to use. If I did like this one, I can go ahead and just save it. It'll become a standard visual, and it'll be in my report, and I can start asking more questions. There, that's a lot I've covered in this time. David, do we have some questions that people have been submitting?
Hey Ben, yeah, we do. First off, thanks. That was a great presentation. I've never thought about comparing business processes to the Pony Express, but that was a really spot on analogy. We did have a few questions come in, and the first one was, will the presentation be available afterwards? So the answer to that is yes. We'll follow up with a link to the recording and make that available to you. The next question we had, Ben, was how long does it take to typically update the data in the blue cube?
That's a great question, because the truth is that you don't have to update it all at once. And we have customers with as many as 1.5 billion rows of data. We have a lot of customers that just have several 100 million rows of data. But most often you partition it so that maybe if you're looking at sales or a GL, you are bringing in like prior year balances once a day, but you might update current year amounts every 20 minutes, right? So you're going to want to break that blue cube into little partitions so you can refresh portions of it without doing the whole thing.
Great. We also had a question / comment that says, so the hardest part is not consuming the data model, but creating it. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I think it is complicated. We've had a number of customers who want to build it on their own, and again, there's nothing nothing stopping you. The technology to do that's all publicly out there, but putting the pieces together is pretty hard, and making it work seamlessly takes some nuance that is tough to learn. So we have had a couple of people try to build on their own and come back to us, but so I would say yes, it is the hardest part. On the using it though, I do think learning how to use the right visuals is a hard part. People are used to data in the old-fashioned way, rows and columns of data, and then when they get better at it, the first thing they go is to pie charts. But the actual charts you can use are much more advanced than that, and it actually takes some practice learning how to use those visuals effectively.
Okay, great answer. And the last question we have here is, does your solution support customizations made to ERP systems?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, it does. In fact, if you think about whether it's Vista or JD Edwards or any other one, in Vista you can add all sorts of UD fields. You can actually add UD tables. That's one of the reasons people use Vista. Likewise with JD Edwards, it's very configurable. And every JD Edwards instance there's nothing absolutely vanilla about any of them. There's all sorts of nuances, 55 tables, or renaming cat codes. And so the solution is meant to adapt to your customized ERP system, whichever one that is.
Okay, awesome. Well, we Well, one last question. So training on the types of charts is a good idea. Okay, so more of a comment than a question. So just agreeing with your response. So yeah, we appreciate everyone's time today. And if you're interested in getting hands-on with Power BI and creating some of the types of reports you saw Ben demo today, we are running a free Power BI workshop on June 20th that will be focused on financial analysis. So reach out to us if you want to get registered for that. And with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.